And then, okay, so I'm getting really worried about how long these are going because that one is again like around 11 minutes or something.
Yeah, I did a lot of pauses, so I can maybe cut those down.
Don't cut them out.
That'll,
It's fine.
that'll
That's
save us from.
editing effort. That'll save you like max like 20 seconds. Okay, max like 60 seconds. Not worth it.
Hi, welcome to the Nick and Jason Show. Today we're going to talk about how technical product manager should be. And so one thing I was wondering, Nikta, where would you put yourself on the technical spectrum? And has that affected your career or affected your, ability to do your job in any scenario?
Such a good question. Such a good topic. So I would say that on the spectrum, I am like in the middle and leaning towards probably the non-technical side. There are a lot of product managers who were once developers. And so that's why I would say that I'm leaning to the non-technical side because I know that so many of them have written code, have built products through programming. But at the same time, I would say that, I have technical chops in the sense that like I write my own SQL queries to get data, not the super complex SQL queries, but I can certainly handle the basics. And then, I can query APIs using Postman and I understand how to read API documentation and how endpoints work and different authentication methods and things like that. So, I wouldn't say I'm totally lost when it comes to being technical. And back in university, I like wrote programs to like do things. And I find it really useful, right? Because I think the number one benefit of having a technical background is frankly being able to call engineers on their bullshit. So, if if engineers come back and tell me that a project is going to take 6 weeks and then just start like throwing like scary words at me, right? Hadoop cluster, Kafka queue, server-side rendering, like whatever, all this jargon. I can kind of be like, whoa, like, hold on. Like, do we actually need to do it that way? Can't we just start, really simple by having a table and then it allows me to have a more productive conversation. I also have found that anytime that I've like, you know, QA'd an API that an engineer wrote by just like pulling up Postman and going and like sitting next to him and being like, look, it's not working, like it's returning this error, that they always just kind of like respect me a little bit more, that like I'm QAing their API and stuff. And so in those ways, I think it really helps with like just being taken seriously, having constructive conversations, and I guess in the long run, then some career growth. You know,
Mm-hmm.
how does it feel like for you, like in working with product managers? Like, how technical do you think we should be?
That's a good question. Uh, I think technical enough so that the mental model, the PM's mental model, it aligns with what's in the code, and the more quickly they can approach that. Like they may not always have the right mental model, because the thing about code is that like you show something on screen and like, oh, there's a button and there's a label and there's a text box, no problem. But how they're grouped and what they all do once the button's pressed, like shit gets weird a few layers down. Code's in layers.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear that a lot. Layers. Anyway, weird shit happens in a few layers down, and then those little details will bubble up and kind of snag you, and you think, oh well, you just want to make this. I just want to make this one change, but it turns out that one little change takes 2 weeks, and the
Right.
PM can't fathom why, and they get all frustrated.
Right.
And then I can explain it to them using technical terms, and uh, that just make things go smoother day to day. And so, yes, that's how it benefits me, to be able to talk to a PM on that kind of level. It doesn't have to necessarily talk. You don't have to talk about code, but you can talk about concepts, or the little blocks that we represent code as. If they can think in those blocks, that's better.
Can I actually interject right there to say I wish more engineers explained things to me visually. I personally am just a very visual person, and sometimes I'll ask a question of an engineer and they'll explain in a long number of sentences why something is going to take 2 weeks and how things get weird in those lower layers of code. And I wish that they would just draw the boxes and the arrows, and it's okay, well then this thing makes a call to this thing, and that thing goes and fetches that bit of data, and then we need to wait to get that piece of data back before we make the other call to get the other piece of data, and that all ends up being more than 10 seconds, and so therefore it times out, and that's why we can't do it. We'd have to rewrite this whole thing. And then I could be oh, okay, I get it. Just give me the arrows and the boxes. I can follow to that degree. But often I don't get the explanations in that way. I just kind of get some words,
Right. And that's yes, that is something engineers should probably work on. Is I've found that PMs and QA people and designers, they have this mental model and they kind of carry on with it, and then they say something that's well, that's not real, but it's because their mental model is not the same as mine is, and they've made some kind of logical deduction based on what they know, and so you just correct that, and so then it's more aligned to what the code does, and they're oh, okay, that makes more sense, and then they can carry on working. And so so I think there's nothing we work on conceptually that's all super mysterious and only engineers can handle it. It's just how it's articulated, if it needs to be. And I think if the PM can pick that up quickly, they're going to benefit.
Right. So, sorry, can I say something regarding the mental model thing? I completely see how it helps me match your mental model more. In the sense that I'll be able to understand, why certain things are doable or not doable and things like that. But part of the risk of saying that a product manager should be technical and should be able to adapt to an engineer's mental model is that the whole beauty of a diverse team, and by diverse I don't necessarily mean whatever female male diversity or background diversity. What I mean is having people who think differently, right? Which is ultimately what diversity is all about. And so on a team of 6 or 7 engineers, I'm always outnumbered. And so you guys are always thinking about things using the mental models that you have, using the super concrete analytical methods of thinking. And I'm a more creative thinker, and I think more about the usability aspects or the long-term vision aspects and stuff. And so isn't that the whole beauty, is that we're not all thinking the same way? And so if I'm looking to improve myself as an engineer, as a product manager, and hone my craft, should I really be taking a course online on programming, or should I actually lean into some of the other stuff that the team collectively doesn't possess? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And maybe, right? It depends on so much, and kind of little behind the music here. We've already done this show once and it's garbage, and so this is the redo. And I kind of introduced this topic in a way to kind of hate on PMs, or not hate on them, but just be oh, PMs, right? But what I realized after doing the first show was that wasn't fair. And what I'm actually, it's a very selfish approach that PMs, or should PMs be technical? That's a very engineering centric point of view, is that, yeah, of course they should meet me at my kind of what I'm working on. And I think I like in a smaller company where everyone's wearing lots of hats. Yeah, I'd say the PM needs to be a lot more technical because you're working with all these people and everything's cranked up. The deadlines are tighter. There's no profit. Everyone's like, there's this edge to things, and whether it's fair or not, if the PM's not technical, it's just another source of friction for the engineers, and they'll end up resenting working with that person. But as the company gets bigger and there's more roles and there's also more people in those roles, your impact, an individual's impact, is smaller and more focused, and so it's less necessary for a PM to be as technical, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that scenario, then yeah, maybe you're not big enough yet to have a full usability research team, and so the PM has to go and adapt to that, become that for the team, for the product.
Right.
And so and beyond that, like why only make the demand on PMs to go beyond their job? Shouldn't engineers go beyond theirs and know, like, as an app developer, I need to know about typography and animation and the reasons for it and layout and how many taps things take, stuff like that.
And like the business strategy of the app that you're building, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then once I know those things, it all feeds back, and so I become a better engineer when I work with those things. And so if we generalized, is it better to go beyond your lane? And ultimately, yes, it is. Like to learn things that are not like directly related to your job, but kind of peripheral, and someone else does it, you're going to have better conversations with them. You're going to do more with them if you know a bit about their job and you can talk to them in their context. And so there, I showed some growth.
So proud of you, Jason.
From one episode to another.
We should put both episodes up online so that people can appreciate the full change.
We'll put the first one on the DVD. For the next one.